Welcome to OnFinality's customer interview series, where we learn more from leaders in the blockchain space and how OnFinality's infrastructure helps them build the decentralized future faster. My name is Rob, Head of Growth, and today it's our pleasure to have Jonathan from Talisman, a self-custodial crypto wallet, to join us for a chat on how they're using OnFinality. Hey, Jonathan, how's it going?
It's going great, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, all good. Can you tell people who aren't familiar with Talisman a little bit more about what makes you guys special?
Talisman are, I guess, a team of really product-focused minds that are building a couple of products for the Polkadot ecosystem. Firstly, a wallet extension, which you can install on almost any of the desktop browsers. And secondly, a web portal where you can browse your portfolio and participate in lots of the different opportunities that exist in the Polkadot ecosystem, like crowd loans, XCM, and things like that. And I guess if there was something that makes us special, it's this kind of product rigor that we apply to our engineering process to make sure that the experience that a user has when they're using these chains and applications is as good as it can be.
Awesome. One interesting thing I saw was you endeavor to be like a community-owned wallet. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, when we started the project, we thought, what makes a wallet project great and what makes a wallet project kind of not so great. It was more so in the second column of that was this sense where a wallet project might become kind of detached from its users, and it's kind of heading in one direction, but the users are asking for certain kind of other features and for the project to head in another way. So we kind of said from the start that we want to avoid that as much as possible. So we would want to involve the community in kind of the product development as much as we can, and kind of foster that from day zero in a kind of community-oriented approach. And it's just, it's really like downstream from our objective to create a really nice product. We think if people that are using the product every single day are involved in prioritizing what goes in it tomorrow, then you end up with a better outcome for everybody. So that was the goal, but it's become a really nice kind of storyline, I think, for Talisman, because it is fun and interacting with the community.
Yeah, I certainly haven't seen that anywhere else, and I think that really shows through in some of your features. So yeah, awesome. And then I guess one thing that's kind of a hot topic lately is staking. With the SEC going after people like Kraken and all this stuff, coming and gaining a lot more prominence. I noticed you just passed the 1 million dot in your nomination pool, so congratulations. Can you talk more about your smart staking feature?
The smart staking feature kind of came about when the nomination pools update went live on the Polkadot Relay chain, where the minimum requirement to do self-custodied staking on Polkadot went from something like 180 dot down to 1 dot, or maybe a couple of dot if you factor in the existential deposit and things like that. And that was really the key that unlocks what we considered to be the user experience that we wanted to provide for users for staking, where it's still self-custodied. The user can kind of still withdraw whenever they want. We're not kind of running any infrastructure which takes their coins, out of their grasp. And it's still an experience which the user can do in kind of one click. That's the idea, right? You want to open a position, understand what that position is, and kind of be done with it within a couple of clicks. And that's where smart staking really comes in, where we kind of run a little process to suggest the best pool for the user, so that they don't need to go through this process of kind of reading information from the chain to understand which decision to make. We kind of try and run a reasonably transparent process to do that on behalf of the user. And that's where kind of smart staking or one-click staking has come from.
Awesome. Yeah, it's pretty painful in some places. And I think I recall reading in some of your documentation that this whole focus on users and number of clicks to achieve certain things is a real priority, which, it's normal, I guess, in kind of the more Web 2 world, but is pretty terrible in some Web 3 experiences.
Yeah, the tricky thing with focusing on number of clicks in Web3 is often that involves a sacrifice with, if I kind of take away the complexity for the user, that actually puts a lot of trust on the kind of wallet or the front end provider to make all these decisions on behalf of the user. And it's not really in keeping with the kind of self-custody, the user is always in control, and it's fully transparent kind of ethos that we want to uphold. So we have to kind of engineer around that compromise and tread the line between allowing the user to open something that they fully understand, interact with an application in a way where they really kind of understand the consequences of what they're doing, but not just totally hide that information from them because it's like an easy product design thing to do. So it's a product design task, it's an education task, it's an engineering task, but it's been pretty successful so far, I think.
Yeah, and on that topic, I guess, given that things have been a bit dicey, shall we say, in the crypto market in the last year or so with all sorts of issues, has that type of thing around security and people's concerns around security, has that been a positive for you, or have you had to do like additional educational work to kind of clear up how you guys are different and kind of the pros and cons, like what you're talking about in terms of the features that you offer?
It's a positive in the sense that a lot of people have maybe migrated to a self-custodied solution in the past 12 months with everything that's been happening with centralized exchanges like FTX. But it's still like an ongoing challenge to educate this kind of cohort of users entering Web3 to say, self-custodied is where you are really in control of your keys, and it's on you to back it up correctly. It's on you to connect to dApps which are safe, and we can do as much as we can with kind of phishing lists, prompting the user to kind of implement good standards and practices for their own self-custody. But the past 12 months might have been tricky for the ecosystem generally, because there was a lot of kind of negative news and like negative actions taken that might have like caused people's trust in Web3 to waver a little bit. But the outcome is that people are now more wary of these types of things, and that's only a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's it's about striking that balance. There was one of the Winklevoss twins who was talking about this a while ago. I think when people say, not your keys, not your coins, and he said, well, do you think of that in relation to your email, like not your server, not your email, and kind of making the point that in some cases, some people are better off, having like trust in another party that's probably going to do a better job for them than they are. But then also this acknowledgement that obviously, given the number of things that have gone on and kind of the opportunity around crypto, that you want to have that, the people's ability to do these things when they want to.
Absolutely. It's kind of dependent on the individual's risk profile at the end of the day. But hopefully, as more and more tools come into the ecosystem, you can cater for these different types of preference as best as we can, and cater for them in a safer way, where they might be able to onboard with Web3 Auth or something like that, which is convenient and email based. But they might kind of learn more about self-custody and their risk profile changes, and those keys can rotate in some way. So there's a lot of room, I think, to innovate with this kind of thing in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking about innovation, can you talk more about your portfolio management feature, where you have this quite novel approach around how you, I guess, illustrate people's assets across different networks?
Yeah. So kind of every wallet before Talisman had taken, I guess, a chain first approach to showing your assets and your portfolio, where you really had to filter by chain before you could get an understanding of the assets that existed on that chain. So if I wanted to see what I had on Ethereum mainnet, I can see that. And then if I wanted to look at optimism or something, change the chain selector, and then I can see the assets I have on that network. But we're building for the Polkadot ecosystem, where there is a relay chain and then there are dozens and dozens of parachains. And the idea is that these parachains are kind of interoperable with one another. So this kind of pattern of a chain first portfolio view gets pretty inconvenient pretty quickly, especially with things like crowd loans, which were, end of 2021. It was quite a while ago. So we took an asset first approach instead, where it's kind of all of the chains at once in the same portfolio view. And if you wanted to click into an asset, then it will show you the locations of that asset. So you can see where your dot is across maybe the relay chain and a few of the parachains that you've bridged dot to. But the main thing is that when you see your portfolio, you see all of your assets in that account, no matter what chain they're on, as the first thing. So that's hopefully the approach that is sustainable as the Polkadot ecosystem grows and assets and positions get a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, I guess it sounds funny for people who may not be exposed to this yet, coming from like TradFi or whatever, but just that very kind of basic thing where you can't see all of your assets in one single view easily, and you guys offering that being like an innovation is kind of interesting, right? But it's still just painful, a lot of these experiences in wallets.
Yeah. Well, it's funny to call it an innovation, because for us it was so kind of painfully obvious. It was like, first job at Talisman is to get rid of the network selector. That was like, item number one, the lowest hanging fruit on the tree. But I'm glad we've done it, and I'm glad that it's kind of caught on as a standard, because from our perspective, it really was something that needed to happen to support this ecosystem of parachains.
Awesome. And speaking about that in terms of the different networks and so on that you can see within the wallet, currently you serve Polkadot and Ethereum. Are there plans to expand wider than that?
We were always like a Polkadot ecosystem wallet first. So that was kind of the substrate networks and the parachains that were implementing the EVM. But then it became apparent that to actually serve that community in the best way, we should also support some of the other EVM networks, because often people are bridging funds from Ethereum mainnet or from an L2 into the Polkadot ecosystem. So in service of the Polkadot ecosystem, you could say, we've supported Ethereum mainnet and a lot of the L2s. And I think that philosophy is just going to continue. So if there are different L1 ecosystems that would be useful for us to support, so that we can help liquidity come into the ecosystem, help liquidity come out of the ecosystem, if that's what the user wants to do, then we're happy to support that.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, from OnFinality's perspective, we can see the huge number of networks you support within Polkadot, which is really awesome to have that coverage. And I guess with that, there must have been some struggles to get to this point. To build a wallet's not easy. Technically pretty complicated. All sorts of security things to consider and so on. Can you just share some of the key challenges you've faced and how you've overcome them?
Yeah, building a wallet is tricky from a security perspective, but a lot of that is almost like a well-trodden path. We've had kind of MetaMask has led the way in a lot of respects. There are kind of reasonably defined standards for building a wallet extension. It's actually quite a locked down environment to develop in to protect the user. So we followed the set of best practices, you could say, engineering wise, for security. And a challenge that we've kind of come into specifically for building a wallet for the Polkadot ecosystem is really just the number of chains that we have to support. I mean, if you're an Ethereum wallet, you've got like mainnet and a few L2s, maybe Binance Smart Chain or something like that. And that's really going to get you like 95% coverage for the chains that the users want supported. And then anything additional can be a custom network, and you can just add that in, and it's not too big of a deal. But in kind of Polkadot world, you have dozens and dozens of parachains on each of the relay chain ecosystems. They are implementing different kind of palettes and standards for how they're handling assets and how they're handling transfers. They each have their own unique set of metadata. So just kind of contending with that to say, we want our user experience in our wallet to be as cohesive as possible, But when you peel beneath the surface, there's all these different chains, all these different tokens, different token standards to support, and how can we kind of layer over that a uniform interface so that the user doesn't really know the complexity that's under the hood. And that's been maybe the biggest challenge. But being able to communicate with those networks via infrastructure like OnFinality is a big help.
Absolutely, and I guess under the hood, like what you're saying, like OnFinality is providing those API endpoints. Can you talk more about how you came across OnFinality and how the services benefit Talisman?
Yeah, well, we came across OnFinality, I guess, from day zero. You were always kind of one of the most well-known infrastructure providers. And benefiting Talisman, it kind of works across the two pillars of the wallet, where you could say, pillar one of building a wallet is being able to like do actions with your key pair, sign transactions and have those propagated to the network. And then pillar number two is I want to be able to see what's in my wallet. I need to be able to see my balances and see my portfolio so that I can perform those actions. And OnFinality actually helps with both of those, where we need to get the metadata from the chain in order to produce the signature. And for that, we need to communicate with the network. And OnFinality plays a really important role there. And for polling your balances and getting chain states so that we can have a nice cohesive view of what's in a user's wallet. OnFinality and different bits of middleware are, of course, kind of critical, because where else are we going to get that information from if not a light client?
Awesome. Do you ever share, kind of like switching gears now, like what are you excited about in terms of whether it's Talisman or like the wallet niche in general coming up? Like any alpha to share about what you're seeing and what's exciting for you guys?
Specific to Talisman and the Polkadot ecosystem, I'm really excited about XCM v3. We've had XCM around for a while. Parachains have more or less settled down after crowd loans and the initial kind of onboarding period. And now we can start to see some of the liquidity flow between parachains. But these are really simple interactions, right? There's like a teleport, there's a reserve asset transfer. That's about all you can do on XCM until now, because very soon, hopefully XCM v3 will be merged. And this kind of hopefully opens the floodgates a little bit with the kind of actions we can see between chains in the Polkadot ecosystem. So that's something that I'm really excited about for Talisman, because it unlocks a lot of use cases that we can kind of jump on and say, this is overly complex for the user at the moment. What work can we do as a wallet to make this easier? And apply the Talisman product rigor to this kind of set of use cases in the same way that we've done for something like staking. And generally for wallets, I mean, we were thinking about this when we started Talisman, and it's still kind of an undercurrent that we need to spend more time on. But it's just the fact that if you really look at MetaMask in like 2017, 2018, and then wallets today, not much has changed. You're still like setting up a seed phrase, writing it down on a bit of paper, and then for each transaction, it's like you're approving a transaction from this app, yes or no. You don't really have much information regarding what's in it. And this is all, I think, is ripe for change. I mean, we can do some really cool stuff with transaction simulation and make that user experience a lot more kind of verifiable and comprehensive. And for setting up your key pairs, there's now like a host of multi-party computation, social recovery, multi-sig kind of patterns that I think a lot of wallets can jump on to make that a little bit easier, because we're still stuck in 2018 with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that, because it's some of the experiences are still a bit painful, right? And I think there's ultimately going to be important to onboard more and more people. It's inevitable that some of the things which you are taking as like standard, they're just going to happen over time. One interesting thing I guess about Talisman is your team is predominantly in Australia, OnFinality is predominantly in New Zealand, so kind of far-flung places for crypto development. Can you talk more about how that happened and what advice you might give to people who are looking to maybe get into the industry from our neck of the woods?
I was pretty fortunate because there was a nice kind of Web3 community here in Melbourne when I came into the space in 2018. So I met some really great mentors at the right time and managed to kind of use my local area as almost the onboarding point into Web3. So I would encourage firstly to see what's in your city or in your region, to try and meet some like-minded people in person. But we've seen since starting Talisman that online communities are just blossoming. It's very possible to join a Discord or join some kind of a community, and there is actually quite a defined set of steps for how you can contribute. You might start small and do some like Discord moderation or write some documentation, and then kind of move on to bigger things as you accumulate trust and reputation in the community. And that's something that we're trying to foster in Talisman with the Sentinels program. But there are dozens and dozens of these opportunities kind of across the internet. So I would probably encourage people to dive into what they're curious about and use that as fuel to just explore different communities and Discord servers, because there will definitely be a way to contribute whether you're technical or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Good advice. Well, thanks for joining us today, Jonathan. It's been a pleasure learning more about Talisman. Really awesome product and great support of OnFinality. If you'd like to learn more about Talisman, you can go to their website. We'll put the link in the description below. And if you're a Web3 builder, you're at the right place. OnFinality is blockchain infrastructure made smarter. You can check out our website at .onfinality.io and get stuck in. Thanks again, Jonathan. Great to have you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. And thanks, OnFinality, for the infrastructure that you guys are running.
No worries. Our pleasure.
All right. Catch you next time.
See you.